And we live. What's going on, everybody?
Oh yeah, we are live. What's going on? What's going on? So, uh, as y'all can see, I got an extra person with me today, and that's my brother, uh, David Chandler. Uh, and I also got my bro Darian Eaton. And today we are going to discuss uh, Darwinian evolution, and as you can see, the name of the show is Paradigms Unveiled: Occultism and Ethical Inquiries. This is actually not a strong area for me, so that's why I got my bros to help me out today. And this is exactly what we're going to do. We trying to look into we're trying to inquire of the ethical backgrounds of Darwinism and how it affects science and how we think today from a philosophical and scientific perspective. Um, my bro, any one of y'all want something to say?
I just want to say, it was a couple of weeks ago. We were doing a show, and then somebody came in on at the end and kept saying all scientists agree, as opposed to the scientists that are in the Christian area of expertise. Even though they were scientists, because they were Christians, they were supposed to not be official.
Yes.
My whole point was just because they're a secular scientist and they don't agree with Christians does not mean that they don't have ulterior motives and agendas. As one of the brothers so eloquently said, that Nathaniel Jensen had an agenda because he worked for a Christian company. So my whole thing is to say there are regular scientists, secular, so regular is what I'm saying, that also can't be trusted, who have purported poor topics, bad data, and racial stereotypes and things like ideologies of all kind that aren't beneficial in the actual grand scheme of science. So that's my opener.
Okay. David, you got anything you want to say before I continue on?
Just wanted to agree with what Darian just said. A lot of so-called scientists are promoting this idea that if it's of a Christian worldview or a creationist worldview, then it's not science. You know, you think of people like a guy by the name. Well, he wrote this book called "Sexuality in the Human Male." His name was Alfred Kinsey. He was a scientist.
Oh man, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
He was a Crowleyite. He was a Crowleyite too, and that's where he got most of his views. And I wanted to get into that if there's going to be time, but that's the theory with science in particular. And I wanted to really expose that because if we're Christians, then we're supposed to get the idea of science correctly. Science is supposed to come from the Bible, right? Because God made the universe.
Yeah. So their argument will be you can't mix religion with science, and I think their approach is a little off because we basically have to deal with the true definition of what science is. And
So what's the true definition of science? Let's start there. What is the true definition, the unbiased, unfiltered version of a definition of what science actually is? What is science?
Well, science is defined as anything that can be observed through the natural eye, through in a laboratory situation where it is controlled and hypothesized. I may have gotten a little off there with the definition, but that's apparent. That's basically what the realm of science is. So if we can see the sun from 93 million miles away, and we can feel the ultraviolet rays, we can actually see them, then that pretty much means that the sun is there. The sun is out there. If we can see the rain coming from the sky, well, any scientist with common sense would say, well, the clouds are holding what is called water vapor, and the water vapor becomes too dense for the clouds to hold, so it comes down as rain. That could literally be seen and observed. So science
Right.
is very, very observable. DNA is another example of this.
Right. I like how you pull that up with the rain and the sun. So these are sciences that are broken down into different categories, like astronomy and dealing with the sun, with the weather, clouds. That's meteorology.
Meteorology.
Yeah. So, and then just thinking about the raindrops that are in the clouds, how they hold negative and positive ions, and then what happens? They create lightning. The Bible actually speaks to that. He creates the lightning out of the rain. That's what the Bible says. Let me see if I have to, let me fact check myself just to put it out there so everybody would know that, you know, again, see, lightning, rain.
And so while he's doing that, Dave, question. So when we talk about science, right, as a whole, umbrella term,
Right.
we know that there's many different disciplines in science.
Correct.
Offhand, that has nothing to do with your personal worldview. We're talking about the powers of observation, the powers of testing something, right?
Yes. Test.
And then we're talking about empirical evidence. We're talking about things that can be seen, touched, tasted, your senses, things that you can tap into and that you can collect data on, correct?
Right. That's called the scientific method. The scientific method goes by those principles. If you could, like for instance, Cox Postulates talks about a virus, an infectious virus, or a pathogen. And the only way we can tell that it's caused by a pathogen is if you test the pathogen on the patient. If the patient shows symptoms, and then you take that same pathogen and inject it into a monkey or or some other lab specimen, and then that shows symptoms, and you inject that same virus into a human, and it shows the same symptoms, then that's the causation. That's called causation.
Okay.
So these are all experiments in a lab, and they can observe, make tests, make predictions and stuff like that.
And they collaborate with each other, and that's what they come up with, what is called a hypothesis. They do this with doctors, even do this with their patients. They do an examination, and what they do is they go outside, or they'll go in, they'll stay in your room, and the doctor that just examined you will collaborate with his colleague, and then they'll go from there. They'll agree, okay, well, this person is suffering from the flu, so let's go about a course of treatment that will help that person get well.
Right.
So,
all right. So
before we move forward outside of this bubble of information, so the statement that religion and science or Christianity can coincide, I feel like is a stupid argument, because just historically, there have been Christian scientists that have made huge contributions just to the realm of science. I'm gonna name a couple of them. I'll give you a little bit of information. I got like a few of them. I'll just name a few old ones and some contemporary ones that are alive or have been closer to present day. We all know Isaac Newton, Sir Isaac Newton, 1643 to 1727. So his discipline,
That's my boy.
So his discipline was physics, mathematics, and astronomy, which is one of your favorites, GT. So his contribution was Newtonian mechanics, laws of motion, and universal gravitation, right?
Yep.
And so number two, Gregor Mendel, 1822 to 1884. His discipline, another one that we've been talking about, somebody that Nathaniel Jensen probably knows about, is genetics, botany, and his contribution, he was known as the father of modern genetics, discovered the principles of inheritance through pea plant experiments. And that was Gregor Mendel. So those are two historical Christians. Georges Lemaitre, the French name, I should be able to speak better French. I'm Haitian. I suck at Creole and French, but who cares? His discipline was physics and also astronomy. He 1894 to 1966. And his contribution was he proposed the Big Bang Theory, and he was the father of Big Bang cosmology. So I may not necessarily agree with dude, but I guess he identified as a Christian. Louis Pasteur, and fact check me on these if I'm wrong. Louis Pasteur was 1822 to 1895. He was a microbiologist and he was a chemist. His contribution was germ theory of the germ theory of the disease. So he was working on how germs create diseases, and then the development of vaccines and pasteurization. So you get his pasteurization comes from his name. James Clerk Maxwell, 1831 to 1879, physics and mathematics. And then his contribution was Maxwell's equations, unified theory of electromagnetism. And so his 1831 to 1879 again was his. So just a couple of contemporary Christian scientists. These are the ones that are still alive today. Francis Collins, genetics and genomics. Contribution led the Human Genome Project, discovered genes associated with diseases, advocate for integration of science and faith, which is important. And this person, Francis Collins, is somebody to definitely look into because they still alive. Jennifer Wiseman, 1966 to present day. Her discipline was astrophysics. Her contribution as an astronomer and the director of the AAAS Dialogue on Science, Ethics, and Religion program.
So basically, you've named off what, 7 so far?
I got seven. I got 3 more.
Okay, go ahead.
Alan Sandage, 1926 to 2010 is when he passed. His discipline again was astronomy and cosmology. His contribution was he was pioneering work on the age and size of the universe. He was the Hubble's successor. John Lennox, 1943 to present. Mathematics, philosophy of science. His contribution was as a mathematician, a philosopher, an author, an advocate for Christian apologetics and dialogue with atheism. And then one more, Catherine Hayhoe, 1972, climate science, atmospheric science. Her contribution to atmospheric science as an atmospheric scientist, climate change researcher, and advocate for bridging science and faith communities in environmental stewardship. So these individuals have not only made significant contributions to science, but have also been publicly identified as Christians, and they actively engage in discussions about the intersection between faith and science. So to say that you can't be a scientist and be a Christian is stupid.
It's crazy, yeah. And that takes me right back to the scriptures. When those individuals that you just mentioned, and even including anyone who reads the Bible plainly, when we come across scriptures like this, Psalms or Job 28:26, when he made a decree for the rain and a way for the lightning of the thunder. Psalms 135 verse 7, he causes the vapors to ascend from the ends of the earth, and watch this, he makes lightnings for the rain. He brings the wind out of his treasures. What I stated earlier about the negative ions and the positive ions in the raindrops and how they create lightning. We have a scientific observable phenomenon taking place, and so it is crazy to say that you can't be a Christian and read the Bible and understand science.
I mean, that's propaganda, bro, because I could say the complete opposite. And I'll give you in a second once we get into it. There are the complete opposite. There are scientists who are secular who have made negative contributions in the realm of science and collecting data. I'll give you a few just off the rip because it's ridiculous. And Dave, check this out. Samuel George Morton, 1799 to 1851. His discipline was he was a physician and a natural scientist. His negative contribution was he conducted biased studies on human skulls to support racial hierarchy, contributing to racist ideas about the difference in the intelligence and capability between racial groups. Number two, Louis Agassiz, 1807 to 1873. He was a biologist and a geologist. His negative contribution was that he promoted theories of polygenism, arguing that different human races were created separately and were fundamentally unequal. He used his scientific authority to justify racist beliefs and support racial segregation.
See?
One more good one, historical one. And then I'm going to give you some martyring people that's still rocking out or got closer to our time. Arthur D. Gobineau. He was a diplomat and a writer. His negative contribution was he authored an essay on the inequality of on the human races, promoting racist theories of Aryan supremacy and the inferiority of other racial groups, contributing to the spread of racist ideologies in the 19th century. So a couple of modern people I have
right before Hitler came along.
Correct. This is what I'm trying to say.
And see, and that's what I'll tell them. I'll let you rock in a second.
Okay.
2 seconds real quick. I ain't gonna say their names, but when I explained to them, like, these are your scientists out here that support these racist agendas, and they're using Darwinian evolution to support their foundations, we have to question it. But they want to run along with it because it's not the Bible. So because it's not the Bible, they feel like they in a safe area, but they're really part of the problem. They're supporting the problem that is hurting black people.
But they claim to be Afrocentrist and pro-black. I mean, when you co-sign some of these theories and these teachings because they fit the mold and the way you think to benefit your point, you're really actually spitting in the face of every ancestor, every black person who stood on business in terms of freedom and making sure that we had an understanding of true science. This is ridiculous. But continue.
David, go ahead, David.
Well, I was going to add to what both of you said, because this is part and parcel to what I've been researching concerning Blavatsky and her work, and then Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler read The Secret Doctrine while he was in jail in Austria. And when he became Chancellor of Germany in 1930, and this is what a lot of pro-blacks don't understand, because they will use their beliefs to foster a false view of pro-Afrocentrism. Like they'll say everything that these guys, Blavatsky and Alice Bailey, had all the way back in Egypt, they stole from us, which is a lie. Because and not only is it a lie theologically, but it's a lie historically, because these people had these ideas before Afrocentrism became a thing. Mm-hmm. And it's another thing that I wanted to talk of, like really add to this guy, Gobineau. He said that he promoted racist theories of Aryan supremacy and the inferiority of other racial groups, the same thing that Hitler did. Hitler read these works, and that fostered his beliefs in Nazism and what is called dialectical materialism. And that's another Darwinianist theory where races are superior because of their genetic superiority as opposed to their genetic disposition. And so, Hitler said that the Jews were 100% ape. Blacks were, I think he said blacks were 95% ape. And all the other races were just, the idiots and the so-called intellectually inferior. They were to be thrown out, and then on top of everything else, they will be eliminated. They were to be exterminated, and on top of everything else, they promoted what is called racial cleansing. And they can't do racial cleansing without. And before I get into that,
genocide.
Yeah, genocide. And because they believe that if we get rid of the genetically inferior, then that's going to bring about, and this is where the occult comes in, nirvana, because now we can start our Third Reich. And because if we can start our Third Reich, then that means we have to get rid of certain races that were genetically inferior.
Facts.
That's where Hitler got his ideas from.
Amen. I agree with that. So, because I know we get ready to go into a different direction, I'll give you the rest of the a few more, because nobody can argue these points that I'm hitting. There are, and they go right into what David is saying. Listen to this guy, G, because I know you don't know a lot about these people. Ernest Houghton, 1887 to 1954. He was a physical anthropologist. That was his discipline. Negative contribution. He associated with eugenics, supported racist ideas about racial hierarchy and biological basis of intelligence. His work perpetuated harmful stereotypes about different racial groups during the early 20th century, right?
Yeah.
Number 5, Henry Fairfield Osborn, 1857 to 1935.
Ooh.
Notice how we...
Osborn. That last name, for some reason, just it stuck out to me, but go ahead.
Paleontologist. Notice his discipline. Paleontologist. Eugenicist. Negative contribution. Used his position to advance eugenicist policies and support discriminatory immigration laws, promoted racist ideas about human evolution and racial superiority, contributing to the propagation of scientific racism in the early 20th century. That's 2 people in the 20th century. All right, so these individuals use their positions in various scientific fields to promote and legitimize racist ideologies, leading to harmful consequences for society. Just as David said, these racial ideologies like eugenics, and here's another one, social Darwinism, have been intertwined with scientific and pseudoscientific theories throughout history, leading to discriminatory practices and policies based on notions of racial superiority and biological determinism. And then here go my last couple of figures that I want you to understand who are associated with these ideologies. Francis Galton, Charles Davenport, Arthur Jensen, William Shockley, and then William Reich and Helena Blavatsky. So just to sum them up, so I'm not spending time running them down the list. Arthur Jensen, his contribution was he conducted I said Francis Galton, Charles Davenport, and Madison Grant. I skipped one. So Francis Galton coined the term eugenics, and promoted the idea of improving human hereditary traits through selective breeding, like we some pit bulls or something. His discipline was psychology and anthropology. His negative influences, obviously, he promoted eugenics and laid the foundation for the pseudoscientific belief in the racial hierarchy, and led to the implementation of discriminatory policies, including the forced sterilization and immigration restrictions targeting marginalized groups deemed undesirable by eugenicists. Charles Davenport was a pioneer in the field of eugenics, founded the Eugenics Record Office to collect data on human heredity.
Don't forget
His discipline was biology and genetics. His influence... Would you say?
Go ahead.
All right.
Oh, no, David said Margaret Sanger, but go ahead.
Oh yeah, Davenport's research and advocacy for eugenics contributed to the spread of racial pseudoscience. There we go, because a lot of people love using that pseudo word. Pseudoscience and the implementation of eugenic policies in the United States, including sterilization of the individuals deemed unfit and the passage of restrictive immigration laws targeting certain racial and ethnic groups. Madison Grant, because folks don't know these names, but I'm saying them because they need to understand that when they get into their low religious beliefs or their lack thereof and push evolution, anti-Christian beliefs, it comes from these people. His Madison Grant's contribution authored The Passing of the Great Race, promoting the idea of racial purity and advocating for restrictive immigration policies. Discipline, law, and conservationism. So that Grant's work popularized the pseudoscientific concept of racial purity and provided, intellectual justification for racist ideologies and discriminatory practices, including immigration restrictions targeting non-white ethnic groups and promotion of white supremacist beliefs. Arthur Jensen, not to be confused with Nathaniel Jensen, 1923 to 2012, contribution conducted controversial research on race and intelligence, suggesting that genetic factors contribute to racial differences in IQ. Discipline, psychology, and education. Negative influence. Jensen's work on race and intelligence has been widely criticized for its methodological flaws and potential to reinforce racial stereotypes. His research fueled debates about heritability of intelligence and provided scientific veneer for racist beliefs about innate inferiority of certain racial groups. I got two people, and it goes back into what the two people at the end of this list goes right into David's original concept. William Shockley.
Oh, go ahead.
Let me get him out. 1910 to 1989. I was born in 87. Nobel Prize winning physicist who later became known for his advocacy of eugenics and controversial views on race and intelligence. His discipline was physics and engineering. His negative influence, Shockley's promotion of eugenics, and his arguments linking race and intelligence contributed to the dissemination of racist ideas and provided legitimacy to discriminatory practices. His views were widely criticized by the scientific community and condemned as pseudoscientific and morally reprehensible. And that goes into these people, which David just named. I won't get into them all, but William Reich is important because in 1897 to 1957, his contribution was pioneering work in psychoanalysis and character analysis, developing the theories about orgone energy and orgonomy. His discipline was psychiatry and psychoanalysis. His ideology was Reich's work intersected with eugenics through his controversial ideas about human sexuality and psychology. While he did not explicitly advocate for racial hierarchies, his theories about the role of sexual energy in human behavior and society could be interpreted with a eugenic framework. His negative influence was he faced criticism for its lack of empirical evidence. There we go. His lack of empirical evidence and his unorthodox methods, including the promotion of controversial therapies such as orgone therapy. His later writings became increasingly radical and detached from mainstream science, leading to his persecution by authorities and eventual imprisonment. And last but not least, this lady right here that David mentioned, Helena Blavatsky, co-founder of the Theosophical Society, authored the influential works of occultism and spirituality, including The Secret Doctrine. Her discipline was obviously occultism and esoteric philosophy. Her ideology is that her writings incorporated elements of racial ideology, particularly in her theories about spiritual evolution and the root races. She proposed a hierarchical view of human development, with certain racial groups considered more spiritual and advanced than others. Her negative influence, Blavatsky's theories were criticized for their lack of scientific rigor and their promotion of mystical and pseudo-scientific ideas. Her racial theories, including notions of racial superiority and hierarchy, have been used to justify discriminatory practices and have had a negative impact on intercultural understanding. So with that being said, that her and all the people that I named before that, they have developed their thinking and their beliefs on the evolutionary framework based on Charles Darwin's origin of species of natural selection, which in itself is a theory and a framework on based on race. So then you have people like Jack Parsons, Aleister Crowley, and John Dee, which we can get into later. But I wanted to let y'all know, and GT, that it goes full circle. When you get to believing a certain framework about evolution as a science and saying that Christianity can no longer run parallel with science because of its views using the Bible as part of their framework, is silly, because these people are secular and they have done incalculable harm not only to the black community but people as a whole. So that's my piece.
Yeah. All right. So and that makes sense. That's the whole point of this show, is to expose that. Now, somebody Sneferu says pseudos always run to the past when it comes to evolution, but won't use the data in 2024.
Of course not.
Anybody want to respond to that?
I mean, I literally gave the framework. Who forgets the past though? Because you would be the same person. You a hypocrite. You a hypocrite. Let me tell you why you a hypocrite. You're a hypocrite because when it's convenient, we bring up slavery. When it's convenient, we bring up the history of blacks being beaten in America. When it's convenient, we talk about people from 1991 that got killed by the police. We bring up O.J. Simpson. That's the past by definition. So now when we use history to discuss what the framework of racial science is, now all of a sudden, you want to challenge that the fact these people did it. These are the same people that allow our ancestors to get beat because they believed that it was okay for us to be three parts ape and 1 part man. So now all of a sudden you're a hypocrite. Now all of a sudden we can't speak on it because now we pseudos, when the actual pseudo scientists is the people that you push.
Exactly.
Come on, bro. You're a hypocrite. You're a fraud. You're a fraud.
Right. In the name
now
of
we gotta wait till we can only talk about 2024 because you say so. You're a fraud.
Oh, hold on a second.
Go ahead, David. Go ahead.
It's kind of interesting how pro-blacks love to talk about us going. We were pseudos because we're going to the past. But wait a minute. We, like Darian said, we have to go to the past because we're trying to establish a foundation for where these beliefs came from. It would be silly for me to walking around, I'm wandering around in my apartment trying to find my keys when I don't know where I left them at previously.
Facts.
So that doesn't make sense. So we have to go to the past because where did these beliefs come from? Where did these beliefs? Why are blacks in the situation that they're in? Why is the Democratic Party talking about setting up all these Planned Parenthood clinics in our communities? Where did these beliefs come from? Well, go back to Margaret Sanger. Go back to all of those individuals that Darian just mapped out, just stated, just called out. Jack Parsons and Blavatsky and John Dee and all of these other individuals. They laid the foundation for the nonsense, for all of the pseudo intellectualism that we're dealing with now. The pseudo and by the way, all of this information is in our textbooks. All of this information is in the textbooks, and so it would be silly for people to tell us that we can't look to the past when that's where the source of the problem is. So a doctor has to give a chronology of how we got sick in order for us to be treated, to come up with a course of treatment. What medicines did you take before? How long have you had high blood pressure? How long have you had cancer? How long have you had diabetes? Who was your last doctor before you came to see me?
That's the past.
Right. That's what I'm trying to say. They only say stuff like that when they use ad hominems. Now I'm pseudo because I'm quoting the very people that all of your beliefs is based on.
Yeah.
I'm saying what they said, not what I think. I'm saying what they said. What they said, and the reason why we were in the trouble we were in is because people allowed them to rock for so long. Now that I'm saying it's not okay for us to be, so you saying that it's okay for them to believe that we was monkeys and they treat us like animals, and you want us to go back to slavery? That's what you want? I want him to respond. I hope he on at the end of the show. I really want him to tell me that it's okay for me to be looked at as a gorilla. So I'm a gorilla. So when they lynch me and kill me because you thought it was okay, because I should wait till 2024. 2024 just started. So how much science can come out? It's only, what is this? 3 months in. What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
And then they asked the question, it's in the chat. I ain't gonna put it up here yet, but he said, he's like, do y'all three agree with evolution? Matter of fact, I'll put it up there. Do y'all agree with evolution? And then we need to get into the actual. We need to get into the a little bit of meat of the subject, but I'm gonna entertain this question first. He said, "Do you three agree with evolution?
Do you agree with it?
Like what
you
part,
must think we monkeys.
Yeah, that
what
question
part of
is
evolution? Are we talking about micro or macro? Which one? You'll have your chance to come on to the show to explain yourself and explain to us what you're talking about, because we understand, and I think all three of us agree with microevolution.
Yeah, microevolution is real.
Yeah,
right. But
it's observable. It's observable.
It's called
but this macro, they even said it themselves when I asked them the question. Hey, can we observe macro evolution? Oh, it takes too long to happen. So how do you know it happened? How do you know it's happening?
Even Darwin got it wrong on the Galapagos with the finches. You could Google it. Type in Charles Darwin in Google and type in the word finches on Galapagos. He said that it would be too long for us to see them. What is the word? Speciate. The word they use to speciate. Yeah. Well, guess what? They speciated multiple times. It's simple. It's simple. All you gotta do is listen to what they say and see if we can research it now. Since it's 2024, that's new information to you, probably.
Yep. Yeah.
These be asking weird questions. Do we agree with evolution? What part of evolution, bro?
Yeah, and the new information is basically dogging them because it's continuously demonstrating that the biblical narrative is much more reliable than what they've been feeding to us since the 17th century. So
let's get into it, bro.
Yeah. So before evolution, right, was in schools. I want to share the screen, but I had a copy. I'm gonna try it if y'all don't mind. I'm gonna try it. Can I try? Hopefully it don't mess up. All right, I'm gonna pull this up.
Talking about macro evolution, that's adaptation. We see that. We see species, every species in the book, whether it's a bee or whether it's an insect, whether it's an animal, whether it's humans, they adapt to the environment.
100%. So to answer your question, it depends on what type of evolution we're discussing. If we're talking about microevolution, subsequently, and things revolving around that, for the most part, yes, evolution exists on the micro level. Saying that you came from a gorilla, you might have came from a monkey, but I didn't. That's up to you. If you believe that, you're a faithful believer. Your faith is Charles Darwin. That's your pastor. Charles Darwin, your pastor, but he not mine. That's your apostle.
So what I was going to get into, was so we know before evolution came about, the Bible was always the basis for history. And the Bible was also inspirational in it inspired people to go looking like in certain places like Egypt to find answers to what the Bible was saying. But something happened, bro. And this is a topic that I've always wanted to get into because I don't fully understand it, but I know a lot of other people do. And David, you're one of the persons that I know that deals with the Enlightenment era that started around 1685 all the way through 1815. Deism was the main religion, and I think we probably need to get into the definition of what deism is. But we got people like John Locke at a period of scientific progress, as they call it. So could you go into all of that?
Oh, okay. Sure. Well, the Enlightenment era is the foundation for naturalism. And
Naturalism.
what is naturalism? Well, naturalism is looking at the universe through natural law. There is no supernatural intervention, or looking at the universe through the usage of the natural laws outside of supernatural intervention. So you look at some of your pioneers for this. You know, John Locke was a deist. A lot of your signers for the Declaration of Independence were deists as well. And what is deism? Well, deism is the idea that, of course, deists believe in God. You know, what religion doesn't? But this particular religion believes that there is a God, all powerful, all knowing, but he allows natural law to operate on his own. He doesn't get involved with it. Christians believe, or Christian theology, according to the Word of God, we believe that God is transcendent from His creation. And that's simple. When you're transcendent from something, you're outside of it. You don't you operate it, but you're not a part of it. And this is what deism teaches.
So he basically just wound up the universe and then backed up.
Yeah, it's like Father Time, you know, with the white beard. You know, he winds up a clock and then he sits back and he watches he just sees what happens. But that's not the God of the Bible. But we were confused as to how the what was stated in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. You know, we are created by our Creator God and all of these other things, but we didn't take the time to sit back and ask, well, what God are they talking about? Are they talking about the God of the Bible, or are they talking about some other God that they've devised? And also, this brings me back to a guy by the name of Thomas Paine. Thomas Paine wrote, and he's very, very key.
Thomas Paine?
Right.
Oh, okay. That's one of the founders, right?
Yeah, he's one of the founders. Actually, he brought most of this. He brought Benjamin Franklin over here to the States. He was from England, and he wrote 2 books. And he wrote The Age of Reason, which is very, very nefarious. And he wrote, and actually that chronicled all of his beliefs. And then he wrote Common Sense, which pretty much chronicled the writings of the Declaration of Independence and all of that. But he wrote Age of Reason was really what unveiled who Thomas Paine really was and what he believed. But the Enlightenment era also set the stage for theological liberalism and a lot of the naturalistic ideas that a lot of the theological liberals held to at that time. A lot of these guys, like Locke and Immanuel Kant and all of these other individuals that came along during that time, Nietzsche was kind of like towards the end. But Nietzsche wrote came up with the phrase "God is dead." Why? Because we killed him with our science. I would say he was the father of existentialist thought, because he believed that man did not need a supernatural agent to tell him the difference between right and wrong, morality. Kant was also an enlightened thinker. And Locke also was an enlightened thinker as well. And these guys he set the stage for theological liberalism that, science is all there is.
Mm-hmm.
Rene Descartes, I think, therefore I am. And so we have to understand that all of these beliefs started spreading throughout Europe, going to all of the Christian colleges and the seminaries. And
Okay.
it wasn't.
Pause real quick.
Okay.
Just real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Is it safe to say that some of these Enlightenment ideas that were produced at that time found their way into what we would call, the Black conscious community way of thinking?
Yeah, I would believe
so.
So
Because somebody was on this show and they was like, we let them rock or whatever, but right at the end he's like, oh, you worship a white cracker on the cross.
Mm-hmm.
And I responded with, well, you worship white dead German philosophers. Was that a good assessment?
Well, for the most part, these guys, they and what I told you over the phone a couple of months ago is that different religions will rob and steal from each other, or they'll plagiarize from each other, and they'll change the views, somewhat, or they'll update them, or they'll revise them. But for the most part, you're correct. These guys, a lot of pro-blacks believe in what is called a form of Gnosticism. I call it proto-Gnosticism, but they'll believe in a form of Gnosticism, and this is called enlightenment. Looking into your pineal gland is your third eye, and your pineal gland will open up, and your pineal gland will pretty much give you some sense of enlightenment. And of course, pro-blacks refer to this as
being woke.
Yeah, being woke or conscious. Being conscious. And so this is the promotion with Nuwapianism and not so much Black Hebrew Israelite doctrine, but Nuwapianism, the NOIs also talk about this from time to time. And
they had a whole conversation about the NOI.
Yeah, and not only that, but I had a conversation with a fella up the street. I'm not going to call name his name, but he's from the Moore Science Temple, and they talk about this stuff openly.
Yeah,
openly. They follow after people like Noble Drew Ali. And they so that's very, very important and very key.
So let me say this before you continue on. So to me, like, deism and Christianity don't mix.
No.
Unfortunately, as many Christians that have fallen to this concept of billions of years of human history or creation history, and have unfortunately applied it to creation. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So like I was talking to a brother yesterday who was like, what do you think about the concept of God using 1,000 years for a day and a day 1,000 years to explain, creation? Maybe it wasn't literal. And I explained to him basically that scripture in Peter where it talks about 1,000 years is a day and a day 1,000 years, just like Darian just brought up, or David, you just brought up, that God is outside of time, so he's not affected by time. And so because Christians, my brothers and sisters, have been hoodwinked into thinking that this world is literally billions of years old, they have compromised their belief, I believe, in the scriptures. Science is not the bad guy here, because science is just the basic observation of the physical universe through tests and observation. So I just wanted to put that out there before we continue. So we're talking about the Enlightenment era, and to me, this seems like the time when the scriptures were being The biblical narrative was
under attack. It was under attack.
Yeah.
And for the dude who asked why we go to history is to point out one of the guys that you mentioned said that they killed God, which obviously he didn't do, but his whole agenda was to move people away from the biblical narrative into a different position and a different way of thinking, not because it was incorrect, simply because they had ulterior motives. So now we're accepting someone else's line of thinking, albeit I'm not going to say, I'm going to say it this way. Although they have an issue with white people, the very things that we are discussing are the very things that them and their beliefs and their theories and their theological worldviews that they get from everything outside of Christianity is equally as racist as the people that I put on this list.
right.
And to say that they believe in evolution and then to say that we operate in faith. Well, if you can't prove it by looking at it, then you operating in faith. That's just what it is. You faithful. Yeah. You've never seen a man go from a knuckle dragging gorilla to going to buy a pack of cigarettes at the gas station. You a lie. You a lie. You believe it.
You go get some Newport Slim.
Yo, let me get some Newport soft pack. Yeah, the soft pack. You never seen that. You never seen it. So don't even go for that.
Yeah, let me get a bag of Lay's.
Let me go ahead and soften it up, bro.
You see the commercial with the gorilla kept smacking the pack? They believe it though. You came from a gorilla.
Right, yo. It's like people they go watch Planet of the Apes, the new one, right? And they be like, yo, this gotta be real. It gotta be evolution.
And they don't even know what propaganda is. Hollywood, we got the people on the list that have input. Never mind. I'm gonna let David rock out, bro. Rock out, bro. Because these dudes is ignorant, man.
It's kind of interesting because when you look at propaganda, you know who was the minister of propaganda? Joseph Goebbels. Joseph Goebbels showed.
Hold on. Let me write it down. Joseph. I spell
Geo. I forgot how to spell his name.
I'll look it up. I got it. Joseph Goebbels. I got Goebbels.
But he was the minister of propaganda, and he showed a movie to a group of his Hitler youth. Mm-hmm. I think it's called The Death of a Nation or something like that.
Okay.
And they were Jews being murdered, and all of these other things, and that implanted hatred in their hearts and in their minds. Now let's fast forward about maybe 80 years. Every time we look at, Channel 12, some of the history channels,
Joseph Goebbels.
We look at all of these animal shows, and you have a round table or a think tank of pseudo intellectuals or intellectuals that are scientists that will turn around and tell you that evolution is real and man has evolved from some primordial slime. People will turn around and believe it without thinking, well, wait a minute, this is propaganda. What we're watching, like the Planet of the Apes, like Avatar, and you know what the subtitle for Avatar Part 2 was? I think it was Into the Water or something.
Yeah, Into the Water. Something.
Oh, hold up now.
Water spirits.
That's Darian's spot right there with
water spirits. But I don't want to get too far.
Yeah, we don't even got to hit that because that's gonna take us off topic. But that's a whole occult teaching though. The entire thing from the beginning. Isn't that something that Blavatsky discussed in her writings?
Well, yeah, in her writings, The Secret Doctrine, she talked about the Aryan man, and when Hitler read it, and he told his right-hand man Heinrich Himmler to send his men out to Atlantis, which is supposed to be an underwater world, to excavate the first Aryan man. So the first Aryan man is the first Superman or the first water sphere. The first Aryan, the first Superman. And so that propagated his entire theological premise. So, whoever said, well, you can't look at the past. We've got to look at data in 2024. Bro, 2024 just started. How much information can we get in 3 months? We're not even 3 months.
But like I said, the information today, like I brought on Dr. Jensen, the information that we are discovering today demonstrates again that what they was teaching in the past, before they started, right after they started attacking the Bible, well, it's been discredited. It's under scrutiny. It is not reliable.
But they don't want us to do that though. The reason why he said what he said is because that's called the Kansas City Shuffle. They scamming over here and they got us looking over here. Hey, Trey, yo, tell them, bro, they not trying his, man. We telling them the truth, man. They better wake up. All the stuff that they be talking about, that they don't even sound like they know what they talking about, bro. We going into the quotations and the citations directly from the sources themselves. When everybody asks for a source, now we reading from the sources and you don't want the information. This is the second time I done been on the show and somebody done jumped out there with the crazy stuff.
Look, oh, go ahead, David. Read it. Go ahead.
He says, we know there was a lot of pseudoscience going on, but you're supposed to show what science says today.
That's what I was saying. I brought Jensen on to show y'all that, look, a specific area with genetics, David, real quick, you can explain this too, and a lot better than I can. Mm-hmm. Mutation rate changes within the DNA, right?
Yep.
Jensen pretty much told them and gave them all the resources to go and find so they can read up on mutation rate changes within the Y chromosome, right? And his research, and we can look at the same research, demonstrates that the mutation rates don't happen over a long period of time,
like the same way of years.
Yeah,
and all that
the same way Darian just pointed out. Daggone
the finches.
The finches, they speciated. That
was the whole point. So this is how I know you don't have proper listening skills. This is my youngest daughter is 6 and she has special needs. You don't know what you're talking about. We literally telling you that we did the research for you. The foundational things that Charles Darwin discussed.
Oh my
we're
God!
telling you guaranteed right now that he was wrong. You don't want to hear that. Macro evolution, he's wrong. The finches speciated. The very thing he wrote in his book that he stole from his uncle, the propaganda came from his uncle Erasmus, is wrong. It's wrong. We're not saying that everything in evolution can't be trusted, but there's a large portion of it that is propaganda that was infiltrated into the books, in the school systems, into propaganda, into our TVs, through German scientists and a bunch of racist people who wanted us to believe a lie. You accepted it, and that you don't even have enough common sense to understand that we're telling you that verbatim. You saying talk about today, we're telling you today that in the all the way back in the 1700s that the Enlightenment period happened, and those very people are the reason why there's 2 types of scientists. Secular scientists that fall into 2 categories. Either they believe that we came from gorillas and monkeys, or we did not. I'm telling you that they did not come from that. They put a man on the show with a Harvard PhD in peer-reviewed scholarship. And y'all complained. You let Leandre tear Moody up, tear the fur off him. They didn't even understand what was going on simply because the man was white. Whole time, everything y'all talk about in the chats is white people.
Yep.
Everything y'all talking about Egypt, white people. Ain't nothing you saying black. We put Dr. Vince Bantu on here, you probably wouldn't even listen to the man because he's not saying what you want to say, man. Y'all gotta get it together, bro. It's nothing worse about y'all, bro.
Yeah,
There's
past
nothing woke about y'all.
Nope.
Oh man, hey, you gotta make a part two.
Let me give you a citation. Let me give you a citation. Look up Erasmus Darwin. Here's what's important. Those deists that David Chandler put out there, they were Masons.
Yep.
Secret society. Masons. Erasmus Darwin, a Mason. Charles Darwin's daddy, a Mason. They don't care nothing about you. They have their own agenda. The politicians. Yeah. Go ahead, bro.
And not only that, but Albert Pike was not only was he a Mason, but he was a proponent of evolutionary theory.
Because it's an agenda. There is a conspiracy to teach the people at masses foolishness, the unseen hand. That's exactly what it is. That's today's learning. That's a lecture for you today. And if you want a citation, I'll give you a citation. St. David's Lodge number 36, Edinburgh.
Y'all gonna make me.
That was when Erasmus Darwin joined the Masons. They proud of it. In they books, they tell you what they plan to do.
But some of these conscious folk are part of the part of
some of the people that you listen to raping little kids, touching people. You got African Bambaataa. I would never trust none of them fake African brother Polar. They can't even be trusted, and y'all study under them dudes, man.
Let me tell you something.
Yes, everybody has my agenda is to tell you the truth. Whether you believe it or not, ain't gonna stop me, bro. It ain't gonna make me feel no kind of way. I ain't never seen you before. I'll probably never see you again. My goal for you is to have constructive scrutiny where you can go back and look at the information yourself. I don't care nothing about you, bro. I don't know you.
Not in that way. I don't care.
I ain't gonna say I don't care about you, but I'm saying in a way where I don't know you. I'm not gonna feel bad if you don't believe me.
You're not a real.
If you don't believe me, that's what it is. We gotta tell the truth, nothing but the truth. I'm telling you the truth.
If you don't want to accept it, we just what?
Yeah. I should have said it this way, Teddy. If you don't want to believe it, that's on you. If you want to be a gorilla, be a gorilla. That's all I'm saying.
The part about it, I felt like, look, okay, now check this out. His name is Titi Usamatra Seneferu, right? He supports evolution, macro evolution,
nonsense,
but yet rocking an Egyptian name when the Egyptians never even taught anything about macro evolution.
Not at all.
It's not even part of their history.
Nope.
But yet,
that's why I'm talking to him like this. Why are we even dignifying these responses when he clearly doesn't know the subject matter and he's talking? Like, why are you talking instead of listening? Right. You don't know what you're talking about.
All right, so y'all went into the conspiratorial view, right? David, did you want to put out some more stuff about this Enlightenment era, or I can go into a little bit of this.
Well, I can talk about
a little bit of this conspiratorial view, and then I'm gonna have to end it because I gotta get the kids, dog.
Trust me.
We're gonna do a part two.
We're gonna cover atheism next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do it. Hey, we'll work out the logistics after this show.
Well, what I wanted to do is not necessarily get into Francis Bacon, but Francis Bacon he preceded the Enlightenment era. As a matter of fact, he was the one that paved the way for the Enlightenment era to take place. And no one knows who Francis Bacon is. People are pretty much into Shakespeare and all that. You know, Shakespeare, he wrote all of his plays. Well, actually, it was Francis Bacon that wrote all of Shakespeare's plays because Shakespeare couldn't read. Shakespeare couldn't read. Now, I'm not going to.
Was it by dictation? So he told them what to write?
Well, I think it might have been by dictation. I think it was, but I have to really be sure. But I'm not going to say too much about that. But Francis Bacon pretty much was the predecessor to the Enlightenment era. And again, for the sake of being redundant, the Enlightenment era that period pretty much gave rise to a lot of the things that we're talking about now. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of these pro-blacks that turn around and tell us that what we're doing is we have an agenda. We're trying to, where everything that we're seeing is false or everything we're seeing is not real. All you got to do is just look it up for yourself, man. Just look it up for yourself.
Give him Margaret Murray too while you at it, bro. Continue.
But yeah, this it's out there. But see, people that are, a scholarly person will look up information that he's not really too privy to. A person who's a pseudo-intellectual won't do this. They'll just rely on what they know about whatever it is that they think they know.
Right. Yeah. All right. Let me read a little bit of this.
Person I have theists afraid of me.
Somebody named Eusebio Robinson.
Why a theist? I'll hear you. Why a theist afraid of you, bro?
No, yeah, we're gonna open up in a little bit.
Yo, these people, they just want to argue because they broken high. They bored.
He said
he's trying to learn nothing.
He's a Paulinist. He's a Paulist. He knows everything there is about Paul. He said Paul was a liar. Paul, I mean, it's crazy. But
finish his thought. We can get into him later.
It's funny though. Jesus said that Paul was actually, his writings were scripture.
Right. So this book is written by Ralph Epperson. It's an introduction to the conspiratorial view of history. And basically what he's pointing out is that what we've been told in school, the textbooks, we can't really trust them because a lot of the history that has taken place with America and the foundation thereof has been done by proxy and conspiratory. It's been done through conspiracy. So the establishment of the United States, from what he says, wasn't by accident. The wars, the Civil War, the War of Independence, the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, World War I, II, and there's also a plan for World War III. All of these are conspiratorial views of history. Now, on the issue of science versus reason, oh yeah, I saw that. I'm gonna read here. And I'm gonna just read 1, 2, 3 paragraphs, and then we'll open up and we can respond for a little bit. All right, real quick. This is page 349, chapter 31. Science versus reason. The world of science has not escaped the attention of the conspiracy, and its interest has been spurred of late by the sudden increase in the research into a competing theory. The basic foundation block of current scientific thought is the theory of evolution. So important is this theory that there are those who say that anyone finding fault with it is ignorant. We see that, right? People say we ignorant if we don't accept it.
I mean, it happened today. There's your current information, bro.
All right. No, this is in quotations. No informed person doubt anymore that the many animal types that inhabit the earth today are the results of the processes of evolution. This is a quote from scientists. He continues, this position is further strengthened by those who claim that evolution is no longer a theory. It's no longer a theory. Let's see, where was I at? Where I hate when I lose my spot. Okay, no longer a theory. Evolution is not a guess. It is an established theory that is fully proved by known facts. And the last paragraph. The purpose of evolution, according to the socialist, David. Hey, did you? Yeah. I know you forget that one. The purpose of evolution, according to the socialists, at least in a book entitled Evolution of Man, published by the socialist worker. Now, David, I see you sitting there waiting for this name, bro. Watch this. Let me know if you know who this is. Socialists, at least the book entitled Evolution of Man, published by the Socialist Workers' Party, is clear. Socialist Worker Party. Modern socialism is closely allied to the modern scientific theory of evolution. If laborers understand science, they become socialists. But the theory of evolution has another purpose, more pervasive than the desire to convert the reader to the theories of socialism. Julian Huxley,
Mm-hmm. The perennial
Sound familiar?
philosophy. Yep.
All
Very
right.
familiar.
A scientist has explained that Darwin pointed out that no supernatural designer was needed since natural selection could account for any unknown form of life. There was no room for supernatural agency in its evolutionary theory. So I'll stop there. So it seems like there's some connection between socialism and the theory of evolution. Theory of
Yeah.
evolution.
Yeah. We just heard it from the horse's mouth. Julian Huxley wrote a book in published it in 1945. It's called The Perennial Philosophy. And I explained it to GT about a year ago or so. I think it was over the pandemic. And I said that the perennialism or the perennial philosophy talks about the idea of emanationism, which the New Age movement gets their beliefs from. And that means that everything comes from the same source. Like every philosophical belief or every theological belief emanates from the same source. So regardless of whether they're, of their peripheral beliefs. So you have the New Age movement that teaches, that's why they teach universalism. That's why they teach the idea that everybody has this belief that you have the Christ-like consciousness within all of us, and there's no need for salvation. So let me. I want to read something from Ralph Epperson. I've got the New World Order, and it's
Sabio. Come on in if you want to test your mic.
But
Ortega, come on in, test your mic.
But it's called The Humanist, Chapter 26. There is a religion in America today that embodies many of the beliefs of the Masons, the New Age movement, and the Communists. It is called the Humanist religion. Now, let me stop here because the Humanist Manifesto was written during this time. And the Humanist Manifesto talks about this very thing. And that is, man is is pretty much the center of the universe. Man is the center of what we call the discipline of science.
Yeah.
There is no supernatural element at all. God did not create the world in 6 days. He didn't create the world. He didn't create the universe. It's all about man. And so this is part and parcel to the New Age movement. And so I lost my place. But yeah. Oh, so humanism, a modern monotheistic rationalist movement that holds that man is capable of self-fulfillment, ethical conduct without recourse to supernaturalism. I just said this.
Oh, look, now, I'm sorry. I'm gonna post this. I'm gonna show it to you. Now he want to go off, but he don't want to jump on.
Now, yes, I saw. He said it's religion. That's not humanism. Well, actually, it is humanism. I just read it. Just read it. It was a quote by the very dictionary definition.
We got somebody who want to jump in real quick. I'm gonna have to go off in about 5 minutes. So
closing statements before we open the floors then?
I'll do closing statements right at 3:50.
Okay, my time 3:50. Okay.
I got a little 10 minutes to rock with. So let's add Odemeye. Forgive me if I butcher this name, but I'm gonna add him to the stage.
What's good, fellas? It's Odemeye.
Odemeye, what's up, bro?
Hold on, let me unmute you. Okay.
I can hear him.
Yeah, I can hear him too.
Can't say something, please? All right, we good. I think we good. Yeah. Y'all can hear him?
Yeah.
So I caught y'all a little late, man. It sounded very interesting what y'all was conversing about. But just to stick to the point of the conversation, I just wanted to get some insight on what you brothers thought about just dealing with Genesis. We hearing a lot within like the communities and stuff, in these YouTube streets. we're hearing a lot more people just speak towards the the separation between creation in Genesis the first chapter, and then the creation in Genesis the second chapter.
Gap theory.
So I wanted to hear if y'all could give some insight, or maybe if y'all don't agree with the text or agree with where I'm going with it. But basically, I wanted to make the point that would y'all say that the Neanderthals are the ones that are in the first creation, which is, Genesis the first chapter, and then the second chapter is basically, the humanoids.
Who want to tackle it first?
I I'll try to give it a wing. I think that's called theistic evolution.
It is.
The idea that God used evolution to create mankind, which is unscriptural. We see that in the text. We see in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, and in verse 2, the earth without form or void. I get the confusion there because a lot of Christians argue in this idea called the gap theory, where God messed up the first time, and so now he's restarting all over again, which is false, because if you look at the context, it's talking about the earth was formed without form or void, and then verse 3, we read that everything that God made was good, and then of course later on in the chapter we see that man was created in the image of God. So we don't see any evidence of evolution there at all, not in the text. We see evidence that God had full control.
Well, no, brother, not to cut your piece. Not that there's evolution. Um, Not that there's evolution with the creation of Adam, but I'm speaking more towards the separate. We see two creation stories. Do you agree with that? That there's two creations?
No.
No,
No,
no. You wouldn't take
yeah,
that?
like Genesis 1 would be more like an introduction, and Genesis 2 just goes more into detail about the creation account from the sixth day onward.
Right.
So the same man and woman that was created in chapter 1 is the same man and woman created in the chapter in chapter
Well,
2.
Yeah, well, Elder Yara, they had a debate on Sonetta channel, and he was debating with a pastor, and he was pretty much taking the approach or the position that you brothers have. You know what I'm saying? That is basically the same, and it's kind of just reiterating it in the second chapter. But we're seeing a lot in the community that are saying that it's two separations, it's two creations. The first chapter is basically the Neanderthals, you know what I mean, and then the second chapter is basically
What do you
the
think a
humans.
Neanderthal is? Do you think a Neanderthal is a person, or do you think it's a completely different species?
I got 7 minutes, guys.
That's really what I wanted to ask you though, brother. Like honestly, I'm not too sharp on the subject, honestly. So I would like to hear what you would, your opinion.
There's no there's no
No, that brother that just asked me that question, if he can speak on that real quick about what is a Neanderthal to your perspective, bro.
I mean, there's two lines of thought. The scientific evolutionary view is going to say that a Neanderthal is a precursor to humans, correct? The Bible approach is going to say that Neanderthals is just a human. There is no missing links. There is no, we did not come from monkeys. So there is no transition. That's just what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
So whether you believe that or not is between you, God, and Sonetta and them. But at the end of the day, I don't think I came from no monkey. Do that answer your question?
Well, I mean, I guess some people would say that again, that white people, you know what I'm saying, people with straight hair, basically, they descend from Neanderthal, while the Africans, you know what I'm saying, people with woolly hair, come from Adam.
See, I think that's
kind of like what's going on.
So I think all right, so you say your name again. I'm gonna boot you out, but no disrespect, okay? What's your name again?
Audemars.
Oldemar. Okay. Hey, I greatly appreciate you coming on. We're gonna try to do a part 2 to this. I ain't gonna say tomorrow, but sometime this week or next week. But I appreciate you coming on. I'm gonna try to tackle your questions real quick. Okay.
Let's hold on to that question because we can come back on the second one. I mean, talk about it now.
Let me explain. Let me give some explanation to what he was saying. So creation, right? This again, what we stated earlier, because we have been inundated so much with Darwinian philosophy that some of us have tried in a way to explain the scriptures from a Darwinian perspective.
Correct.
It's a contradiction. And then what they do is say stuff like Satan fell in Genesis 1:1. And in Genesis 1:2, God destroyed the world and started over again. And now Satan is on the loose while God is doing all this recreating, and 1/3 of the angelic host is just waiting for the earth to be recreated. And then we read later in Genesis 1:31, and God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning was the 6th day. So the question I have for deists, people who think like this, is if Satan had already fallen, how could everything the Lord had created by the 6th day be very good? It doesn't make sense. You got a fallen creature running around space or wherever, waiting for the earth to be finished so that he can go and mess up things on earth. And then they use terminologies like the tohu bahu, Hebrew rendering, that says that the earth was chaotic. And they say, oh, Satan's fall caused chaos. But again, when you look at the creative order and watch this, this is perfect. I love the Bible. I love the way God does things. If you look at day 1 and day 4, day 1 and day 4 was made for each other because God created the heavens and the earth, or the heaven and the earth. Day 2. What happened to him here?
No, he's at the end.
Oh, day 2, God created what was it? Day 2, the firmament and the waters above and waters below. Well, on day 5, he created the birds that fly in the heavens and the fish that swim in the water. And then on day 3, he created the dry land. Let the dry land appear. And guess what? On day 6, he created, that's what I'm talking about. He created man and the animals that walk on the dry land. So there is no gap of time that people are talking about.
No gap theory. That's what I was trying to explain to him, but I guess maybe he needed more clarification, which is fine.
I think his initial question, I think he was trying to see where he was going with the Neanderthals. What I held up was the initial human skeleton and then the Neanderthal head. And so according to some, I think I don't have all the research compiled. I'm going to take my time, and maybe on the next show, I'm going to come back with this. But according to this, Neanderthals are bone for bone human skeletons. The only difference are that the bones are thicker, stronger, and more durable. The wisdom teeth fit perfectly, and the brain sizes are much larger. They are simply ancient, heavy-duty human skeletons, not dissimilar to the heavy-duty Garden of Eden style animals we find from the past. So, according to this particular little book, there you ain't gonna be able to see it because it's in the book. But what I'll try to do is on the presentation show you the animals that they found. How like a penguin is the size of, like, they have animals and bugs that's 4 or 5 to 10 times larger than the ones from today. And so the reason why they show the ridge plate on that is because they, according to the Bible, they live longer times. So if you've ever gone to a nursing home or had an older person in your family, their face kind of droop, but this part of your face, your eyebrow ridge always continues to grow. And so they've shown humans from then, human old people from today's time, and they have that same growth of bone on their eye ridge. And so everything else was the same. The other thing that I thought was interesting is that the wisdom teeth fit perfectly. So what some scientists and some creation scientists, I'm saying some of each because it's not just Christians that have found these things. What I'm saying is they have made, I guess, a hypothesis that humans over time, from Adam and Eve's time to now, have degraded over time. We're not as sturdy as we used to be. And that's just with a lot of things. And so
that makes sense. That will fall under the adaptive principles, because whoever these people were adapted to wherever they lived. If their bones are sturdy, I think they used to call them cavemen, right? But the DNA analysis concluded that Neanderthals are human. They are human, plain and simple. They're not a mixed breed of ape and human. Their DNA that has been extracted is completely human, because now they argue that, well, to explain that, the Neanderthal and the modern human or somebody got tangled up together and began to produce modern humans or something like that.
So a citation would be from Dr. Jack Cuozzo. I may be saying his name wrong. Cuozzo, Cuozzo, Dr. Jack Cuozzo. And in 1977, he studied in Switzerland with Dr. Francis Schaeffer, and in 1979 began much of the original study on the Neanderthal fossils. He was and is today one of the foremost experts on Neanderthals, particularly juvenile Neanderthals. He became a acclaimed controversial figure, as he later claimed those in support of grant funding money for evolution had been altering or destroying skulls in efforts to make them more ape-like.
That's another thing.
Which is what he didn't see that in the beginning, where we were talking about those things. There has been a lot of people in the secular science community who have gone out of their way to make it so that people were ape-like. Now, I don't know where he was saying that the tampering with the evidence. Yeah, but he was saying that it was the white people that was Neanderthals. That's somebody just changing their viewpoint to fit a black or African diaspora narrative. That's not what the initial documentation says, by no means. Unless you can give me a citation, I'll give you Dr. Jack Cuozzo, and he basically said it goes on to say that he became one of the first to argue what is common knowledge today, that the Neanderthal was just a fancy word for ancient humans like us. Further, however, Cuozzo demonstrated that Neanderthals did have unusual traits. They appeared to live excessively longer lives than modern humans today. He argued the bones showed they lived for hundreds and hundreds of years in many cases. Well, if you go with the biblical narrative, what was the oldest person? Methuselah?
Yep.
That's post-flood, though. I mean, that's pre-flood, antediluvian.
Right. Yeah. So if you find bone, let's say somebody lived 200 years according to the timeline in the Bible. Let's just say hypothetically you said, okay, I'm gonna give you some credence to move forward with this line of thinking. The bone, theoretically, a bone at 100 years old would have an eye plate that's starting to protrude, but then let's say 200 years later it protrudes further, simply because it never stops growing. And so the funny thing about it is, Dr. Jack Cuozzo, who is on document as one of the top renowned people, has said that, and I quote, in Switzerland, him and Dr. Francis Schaeffer began to do the studies on the original Neanderthal fossils, the original ones.
I got 2 minutes.
And he ended up becoming controversial figure, as he later claimed those in support of grant funding money for evolution had been altering or destroying skulls in efforts to make them more ape-like. So again, I'm saying I believe that folks be out here lying.
That's it. It's like, why do you have to lie about macroevolution? Why do you have to kill people? Why do you have to kill people and use them like museum artifacts like what they did with the Aborigines of Australia, to prove macro evolution.
Because they have an ulterior motive.
Exactly.
There is a conspiracy in the scientific community. I rest my case.
Hey, well, we're going to have to end this, bros, because I got to go pick the kids up. But we'll link up right after this to figure out, when we're going to do the second show. But I'm glad we got this out and got some attention on this, because I'm just like, I'm like y'all, bro. Hey, what are they teaching our kids? What are they trying to teach us? Why are they diverting from the Bible so hard, even with all the evidence against their secular science?
I mean, they can't even decide whether you're a man or a female. So
exactly.
Yeah, they're calling you now cis man. You're a cis man.
You see what we have to deal with? But if
secular science at its best.
Right.
Yeah, and all of this is
being said,
by evolution.
Right. So with that being said, bros, I'm glad we got this out there, and we just trying to hold up God's word and show our brothers and sisters that, hey, y'all ain't got nothing to worry about when it comes to these so-called conscious folk or whoever want to promote macro evolution, because as you can see, as we pointing out, we done pulled out so many sources about sources to point you in the right directions to show you that macro evolution is not real, and on top of that, there's an agenda behind it.
And you have to have faith to believe it. I'm done.
Yeah, faith. So with that being said, hey, we're gonna load up the guns, and we're gonna come back out firing hard on the next one. So with that being said, to God be the glory, and grace and peace.
Peace.